All right, now we're going to show how to do standardized goniometric measurements. We're going to start at the forearm and move distal. We'll begin with forearm rotation. So first we'll do supination. And with this, you want the one arm stationary, and you want this part exactly up and down or perpendicular to the movement, and then the moving arm to go with forearm rotation. So then if I was like supinate more, you can see how it goes up to about 75 degrees. And then for pronation, we would go on the ulnar side. You have the stationary arm that is going exactly straight up and down, and then the moving arm that just rests exactly on the arm. And you don't want to push down on this because it changes your results. Now we're going to do wrist extension and wrist flexion. So I always start with wrist extension, so I'm going to have you bring your wrist up and then go ahead and extend it back. And with this one, you want to have the stationary arm towards the forearm, and the moving arm goes through the in between the middle finger and the ring finger. And if you do, like, say they had like a big cyst or something, you could go off to the side, but you would need to document that that's different and why you did it different, because it's not the standardized way. Now wrist flexion. Wrist flexion, same thing. It goes between the long and ring finger. And you want it directly over the wrist, and this part straight up and down, and you want it parallel with the wrist. Now I'll show you how to perform radial and ulnar deviation. The stationary arm, you're going to line up at it's usually right at that capitate. You want the anchor to be. I'll put this up so you guys can see it. And this goes right down the line. You want it to line up right up here at that lateral epicondyle. Now go ahead and radially deviate. And then the radial deviation lines up, or the movement arm lines up with the long finger metacarpal. And then the same, go up to ulnar deviation. And you want to make sure you still have your landmarks. So line it up with the long finger metacarpal, not the finger, the metacarpal, and then up the forearm. If you had a longer goniometer, that might be a little more ideal because you could see up at the more proximal point. We're going to start by doing thumb palmar and radial abduction. So we're going to begin with palmar first. So we say palmar because it's within the palmar plane. You place the axis of the goniometer right at the CMC joint. And this one can be tricky if they hyperextend their thumb. So you only want to follow the metacarpal ray. And then with the other leg of the goniometer, you follow the metacarpal. And there you have your range of motion measurement. Now for doing radial abduction, you lay them flat and bring their thumb out. Same thing, you find the base of that joint, the CMC joint, and you line it up with the metacarpal of the thumb and the metacarpal of the index finger. And that's how you perform radial and palmar abduction. Now for thumb flexion and extension, I like to measure extension first. So if he couldn't extend all the way, I would document that he had a 35-degree extensor leg. Now go ahead and flex. And then you would measure how much he is bending it. So it would be 45 over 55. Now the IP, he has hyperextension. So you can notate the hyperextension by using this goniometer, and he has 28 degrees of hyperextension. Now go ahead and flex. And then you lay the goniometer right on top over the joint, and he has 55 degrees flexion. Now to cover index finger range of motion, we're going to just use the index finger as a range of motion point, but you would measure all the other digits the same. So first I start by measuring extension, and it looks like he has full extension, so I would notate 0. And then same with the other joints, you can see that they're at 0. Now go ahead and make a fist. So at the MCP joint, he is at 84 degrees. Now, if you wanted to come up and measure him like that, that would not be the standardized way. So if you do that, you need to notate why you're doing it that way so you're consistent. And then you would measure the PIP, 72 degrees. and then it's not very much DIP, and then measure the DIP, which is 40 degrees. And you repeat the same measurement for all the other digits.